Tired from his adventures, the little boy settled into his bed and slept and slept and slept.
Wasn't that a good story?
Dear, you look a little warm. Sweet dreams.
The Storyteller presents tales of terror at Universal's all-new Halloween Horror Nights.
Halloween Horror Nights 2005 offered one of the most detailed and connective events up until that point. For HHN 2008, the team decided to up the ante with just how immersive they could be using Bloody Mary as the anchor. In order to see the bigger picture on how exactly Mary Agana fit into the larger scope of Halloween Horror Nights 18, we have to go back to the beginning. Mary Agana's grandmother, Cary, Ohio school teacher Mary Worthington, mysteriously disappears in 1908 after a supposed prank. The mastermind behind the prank is the school handyman Aldridge Kesterson. He enlists the help of 6 students, Louise Hadfield, George Von Stabler, Sean McPherson, Jim Deedle, Alice Dodgson, and Jeremiah Kupch to be his accomplices. Mr. Kesterson has some dark secrets of his own, which we will get to a bit later. Flash forward to somewhere in New York in 1958. Psychiatrist Mary Agana is left with a silver jewelry box and other heirlooms by her mother Mary Agana that once belonged to her grandmother, Mary Worthington. Upon opening the box, Mary seemingly begins to be consumed over time by an unseen force. Meanwhile, Dr. Agana is trying to secure funding for her immersive fear therapy. Her clinic, Living Fearlessly, specialized treatments for fear-based ailments, will employ some extreme tactics in order to study and try to cure specific fears and phobias. Mary has reached out to the National Association of Mental Health, or NAM, to help secure that funding. The head of the organization, a Dr. Gustav Heim, ultimately rejects Mary's request for funding. Also on the board is another doctor, a doctor by the name of Christian Kupch, who is also pivotal to denying Mary Agana her funding. Already that name should sound familiar. Despite Mary Agana being denied funding, she pushes forward with her study anyway. In order to help, and perhaps to stay under the radar, she employs some unorthodox individuals. This comes in the form of patients from a local psychiatric hospital and the local prison. An interesting note about the psychiatric hospital, as it may in fact be Shady Brook Asylum, where Mary has harvested her help from. It isn't explicitly said, but given that both are in New York, it's entirely possible. Dr. Agana sees her first patient, Eileen Harrell, on July 9, 1958. Eileen Harrell is the daughter of Louise Hadfield, one of the kids complicit in Mary Worthington's disappearance. Eileen is an illustrator and works for a company called Atomic Comics. Atomic Comics produces a series called Strange Tales. Eileen has come to Dr. Agana to treat her mythophobia and fear of myths or legends or making false statements. Eileen has a particular fear of the Headless Horseman. Her immersion therapy takes place on July 11, 1958.
I can see you. You will not be able to see me. Do you understand? Good. The room you just entered is locked from the outside, and you will not be permitted to leave until the session ends. Understand? Good. Now, you will direct your attention to the table by the mirror. You will remove the fabric draped over the object on the table. Proceed.
Subject's extreme reaction to a severed head, an inanimate object, leaves me apprehensive and puzzled. In an effort to determine the source of terror, I chose to closely examine the object itself. As expected, the flesh was cold to the touch. Muscle tissue stiff as a result of rigor mortis, no doubt. Eyes opaque and dull. Scent, sweet smell of cut meat and coagulating blood. Reminds me of the butcher shop.
Eileen's story directly ties into a few things at the event. The Creature's House, the Hallow House, and the Scare Zone American Gothic, which featured the Headless Horseman. Eileen's treatment, while doesn't end in death, drives her out of her mind. On July 15, 1958, Mary sees her second patient, a Navy lieutenant and the son of Navy Admiral George Von Stabler. George was another one of the 6 kids complicit in the disappearance of Mary Worthington. Against the advice of his friend, Dr. Christian Kupch, George takes his son to Mary Agana to rid his fears of astrophobia and placophobia. The lieutenant has a fear of space and mysterious symbols. Von Stebler's immersion therapy takes place on July 18, 1958.
Lieutenant, I'm sure you can hear my voice. It will be best if you could breathe more slowly and adjust to the restraints securing your head and eyes. I realize you are in discomfort, but struggling against the devices will only make you more so. While your left hand is bound, you will note that your right hand is not. There is a pen and paper for free-form association. Please make sketches as you experience what is about to happen. I am going to show you some images now. You may recognize some that come from your own earlier drawings.
I found this inconclusive, although it leads me to a decision on the next treatment. Audio feedback is too distracting. I find that I like to watch. But I guess I should at least monitor vital signs. The emotion I experienced during this session was much stronger this time. The fact that a single image can drive a man to self-mutilation is... I think I will make the pen my own.
Von Stabler is directly connected to the house Interstellar Terror. Watching Von Stabler mutilate himself stirs something in Mary, and it's the first real escalation in her personality. She even keeps the bloody pen for herself. Meanwhile, private investigator Boris Schuster is hired by a lady named Diane Bennett. Diane is suspicious that her husband Frank is having an affair. Boris employs the services of freelance photographer Charlie McPherson to follow Frank and photograph his infidelities. While following Frank, Charlie comes across Mary Agana's fear clinic. On July 22, 1958, Charlie McPherson makes an appointment with Dr. Agana to help him with his nyctophobia and claustrophobia. Charlie's visit would prove to be pivotal in both Mary Agana's slide into madness and escalation with Boris Schuster. Charlie McPherson's immersion therapy takes place on July 24, 1958.
As you can tell, the room you are lying in is completely dark, and the coffin-like box that holds you, while made of glass so I can visually monitor your reactions, will in no way restrict your movement should you choose to leave it. However, the air supply inside is limited, and you will have to decide for yourself when to push open the glass lid in order to breathe, and when to step out into the world you claim contains your worst fears. There are flash bulbs installed in strategic placement throughout the space, and they are of the exact same type you use in your photography work. In fact, I obtained them from your office. These will illuminate the same images that your flash camera does. In a moment, they will begin to fire, and I will note your reactions. Your vital signs are reaching critical levels. All you need to do is push open the glass lid above you. Life or death.
Subject's irrational decision to remain entombed in an airless glass fears was an unexpected thrill. I must change, conduct myself accordingly. And another observation, as the subject's heart stopped beating, I thought I heard music. Odd to notice such a thing at such a time.
Charlie is directly tied to the house dead exposure. However, even though the main character in the house shares the same name, it is said that both Charlies are different. The death of McPherson would trigger something in Mary. She realizes that watching people die rather than confront their fears gives her an unexpected thrill. It is also the first time she thinks that she hears music, which relates to the jewelry box left by her grandmother. This calls into question later on whether Mary Agana actually becomes Bloody Mary, or is she perhaps being slowly possessed by her grandmother. After the death of Charlie, Mary records her current thoughts about her studies so far. If you followed along on the website back in 2008, you can see Mary begin to slip in focus. She starts to doodle strange things in her notebook. Her notes become much more erratic and nonsensical, and it also appears as if her voice changes ever so slightly over time.
I am. The first subject sessions proved to be as informative as I had hoped, although in ways that were not anticipated. Immersive exposure therapy reaction was far more intense than I imagined it would be. And I discovered an empathy I did not expect. The severed head, the self-mutilation, and finally the ultimate surrender to being no more, watching a life end. This fascinating decision by the photographer leaves me with more questions than answers. But I now know what must be done. For I feel as if I am growing stronger as I acknowledge my own fears of the inevitable through others. And I like it. It is only through watching them die that I live. I am drawn in a new direction, excited by the prospects, and feel renewed.
With her renewed sense of purpose, Dr. Agana sees her next patient on July 30th, 1958, a young man by the name of Johnny Deedle. Johnny is the son of Jim Deedle, another one of the kids complicit in the disappearance of Mary Worthington. After his father dies, Johnny becomes enamored with the comic book series Strange Tales. Of course, Strange Tales is illustrated by Mary Agana's first patient, Eileen Harrell. Reading the series makes Johnny develop megalophobia and herpetophobia. Specifically, he is scared of things hiding under his bed. Making things presumably worse, the main character of the Creatures series is suspiciously named Jim Deedle, who was killed by one of the titular creatures. Johnny's treatment takes place on August 5th, 1958.
7, 6. When I reach the number 5, you will begin to awaken from a deep sleep. 5, 4. When I reach the number 3, you will be very aware of your surroundings and condition. 3, 2, 1. You are fully awake now. And as you feared, you are standing at the edge of an abyss. And although you cannot see it, a greenish light emanates from deep within. Moving up and out of this pit are long, snake-like limbs. You are held tight by the tentacles of an immense creature that is slowly strangling the life out of your body. It covers your face completely, and its long, sinewy feelers are wrapped tight around your neck. I cannot hear you, but I can see you struggling to keep your balance and to escape its grip. There is but one escape. You can end this nightmare by simply facing your own fear, by simply stepping into the thing you dread the most. One step into the abyss, and your nightmare ends forever. One step. That was Azile.
Johnny, of course, is directly tied to the house creatures. The bar in the house, the Butchered Buck, is actually his father, Jim Deedles. It is also a nod to the bar in An American Werewolf in London, the Slaughtered Lamb. Dr. Agana's next patient, Diane Bennett, makes an appointment on August 8, 1958. She is the lady who employed the services of Boris Schuster to follow her husband, Frank. Diane is the daughter of Alice Dodgson, yet another child complicit in the disappearance of Mary Worthington. After quickly divorcing her husband, Frank, once she finds out about his infidelities, Diane develops a few phobias of her own: bibliophobia and metrophobia. Specifically, Diane is scared of stories that end in happily ever after. Diane is the first patient whose treatment also takes place on the same day.
The individuals seated in the circle of chairs around you are patients transported here from a state facility. You'll note that they sit beneath a mirror that reflects your image back to me and gives me a different angle from which to observe you. A closer perspective, if you will. In addition to the performances they have been rehearsing for you, each has been conditioned to react to the safe word we discussed. Should you feel threatened at any time, please repeat the word, and your session will promptly end. I promise. Let the show begin.
Once upon a time, Hansel and you know what else? Experiment a total success. Conclusion: mob mentality infects even psychotic, deranged, and diseased minds. Savage violence begets savage violence. Uninhibited murder can be as therapeutic as any treatment ever conceived. At least for me.
Diane is directly related to the house Scary Tales Once Upon a Nightmare. Diane was also employed by Eileen Harrell's company. As a drama and vocal coach, Diane would read children's classics aloud, which ultimately exacerbated her phobias. Meanwhile, with the disappearance of his photographer and now Diane, Boris Schuster launches his own investigation and zeroes in on Dr. Agana's fear clinic. Mary, diving deeper and deeper into madness, suspects that she is being watched. It is implied that Mary Agana suspects she is not only being watched physically, but perhaps paranormally as well.
And so it occurs to me now that as I watch the others, I am being watched myself. Closely, perhaps even followed as I come and go. Either that or my imagination is growing stronger as I grow stronger. Maybe it is that I am so full of life as I watch others end that I am distracted at times. Nevertheless, I reflect upon each, and the reflections themselves help me grow stronger. But some things are not where I believe them to be, nor where I left them. But the music is soothing. And my thoughts are not my own anymore. Not solely my own. That is to say, I think that others hear me, even when I speak only to myself. No need to sneak or hide one's desire. This fascination with me and my work is surely seductive and so easy to join. All one need do is simply ask.
Dr. Agana's next patient, Thornton Kesterson, visits Mary on August 18, 1958. Kesterson is the son of Aldridge Kesterson, the school handyman who orchestrated the prank that ultimately led to Mary Worthington's disappearance. Aldridge, by all accounts, was not a nice man and has a morbid history of his own. He came to the United States in the 1880s from England. Aldridge is suspected of being an accomplice to the infamous Jack the Ripper, helping transport and smuggle bodies. Aldridge is also not nice to his son, with a history of abuse. As for Thornton himself, as an adult, he becomes a world-renowned gem trader, spanning the globe finding precious and priceless gems to sell. During his world travels, Thornton develops a fear of germs, cannibalism, and fire based around the various cultures he encounters. Because of this, Thornton paid a visit to Dr. Christian Kupsch to administer a few vaccinations. As Thornton's reputation as a precious gem hunter is at its peak, our friend Charlie McPherson catches Thornton smuggling diamonds into the country illegally, and it ultimately damages his reputation. Thornton makes an appointment with Dr. Agana to rid his phobias of phagophobia, misophonia, and pyrophobia.
While your sense of touch, and thus your ability to move, has been completely disabled by the powerful anesthetic I administered, your other faculties are intact. You can see, you can smell, and obviously, you can hear. The incinerator jets below your legs and back are the same used in crematoriums. So when I ignite them, I will adjust them to about 50%, so as to prolong the experience for us. I've arranged for you to both experience and observe as flames consume your flesh. This should really be interesting, for you will face your worst fear, comprehend it, and yet feel none of the pain that your mind tells you that you should. However, if your fear becomes too much to bear, just repeat the word, and I will end this. The mirrors arranged around you give us multiple views of you during this and of your terror, which, if you think about it, is perfect.
This was fantastic. When the mirrors cracked and the reflections multiplied and our purpose became even less clouded, I think we know what must happen now. And we're growing closer with each.
Thornton Kesterson is directly tied to the house Doomsday. Aldridge Kesterson also has a connection to the Scares on Streets of Blood, which connects to Jack the Ripper via the Body Collectors. Thornton Kesterson is Dr. Agana's last real patient. Dr. Christian Kupch is kidnapped by Mary Agana on August 18, 1958. Kupch is the son of Jeremiah Kupch, another student involved in the prank on Mary Worthington. Christian Kupch is a descendant of a man named George Chapman. In the late 1880s, Chapman was living in England as a physician, even conducting some autopsies on a few of the Jack the Ripper victims. In fact, in real life, George Chapman was one of the many suspects thought to be the actual Jack the Ripper. Chapman founded an organization called the Body Collectors. This organization would kidnap and kill people and then sell their body parts on the black market. With fear of being caught, Chapman fled to the United States and changed his name to Kupch. In the early 1900s, Chapman would return to England where his true identity would be revealed. Chapman's real name was Selwyn Kalowski and was tied to a series of serial murders unrelated to the Ripper killings. He was eventually executed for his crimes. With Christian Kupch's ancestral past, as he works to become a psychiatrist, Kupch develops a few phobias of his own: tomophobia and necrophobia. Dr. Agana is very much aware of this and exploits this as she enacts a little bit of revenge for not funding her clinic.
I understand that you left your medical practice for psychiatry. The result of an aversion to surgery and cadavers and such.
Where do you have me sitting? What is this place? Could you please turn up the lights?
Very well, as you ask.
Dear Lord! What have you done? What did you do to these people?
The corpses you see so artfully arranged around you and reflected in the mirrors placed beside them are quite simply evidence of the success I've achieved on my own. This is at the heart of my thesis, that exposure to one's worst fears results in their cure. A thesis that you and your board members rejected.
You murdered and mutilated your patients?
Treated. They suffered, I treated. They suffer no more. As you have suffered, but will suffer no more.
No.
I can see in your eyes that the mere presence of violent death terrifies you more than you can stand. Just say my name and I will put an end to all this.
Dear Lord, Mary!
And so it ends.
Christian Cooch is directly connected to the body collectors, collections of the past. After Cooch's death, Mary becomes increasingly more aware of being watched. Her psyche is long gone at this point. By now, Boris Schuster is more than convinced that something nefarious is happening at Agana's fear clinic. On August 27, 1958, Boris makes an appointment with Mary to get inside the clinic and see what is actually going on. What transpired during this encounter is still up for debate. However, we do know that Bloody Mary was ready to be released onto the world, and Mary Agana's body was never found, just like her grandmother.
You know better than anyone, since you spy upon us and listen and approach the final hour of our time, where we meet as one expects. Hear sweet sounds the other side, where we belong. Shattered image sets us free. Razor sharp shards release. Torn tissue, bared bone, and flayed flesh. Speak my name. Hear my name. Know my name.
Of course, Mary Agana had her own house, Reflections of Fear, which took place both in 2008 and 1958. Guests would enter Agana's disheveled office in 2008 and be transported to her office in 1958. The scare zone, the schoolhouse, would allow guests to enter into the school where Mary Worthington went missing. The 2008 event would also introduce Legendary Truth, the collective. The organization, of course, was founded by Boris Schuster many years before. Ironically, Schuster would become a part of this specific case with his interaction with Mary Agana. While he was initially suspected in killing Mary Agana, it was later revealed that a man by the name of David Gronall was responsible. It is likely that Gronall was one of the inmates Mary had recruited to help her with her experiments. The Legendary Truth team was investigating the disappearance of Mary Agana that year. On August 27, 2008, a team of Legendary Truth operatives entered what remained of Mary Agana's office.
Secret storeroom. Evidence everywhere. Journals. Drawings. Looks like...
Oh my God! At precisely 11:03 p.m.
Images hearing.
Heavy interference.
Physical presence.
Reported death.
Here's an entire file dedicated
I
to...
can't hold the image on video. Are you getting this?
Warren Schuster. What's that mean?
Oh my gosh!
Physical presence detected.
Are you getting this? Video and audio, right? Right?
If this doesn't qualify as level 2, nothing ever will.
Level 1, that's damn right, level 1. Definitely, level 1. No, wait, it's right behind you. It is right behind you.
The Legendary Truth team was never seen again. While the most direct connections to Mary's story were the houses and Legendary Truth, some of her victims had ancillary connections to the scare zone, such as Eileen Harrell, Diane Bennett, and even Aldrich Kesterson and Christian Cooch. However, with the scare zones, we as guests were said to be transported into Mary Agana's mirror itself. They were meant to represent Agana's own dark reflections themselves, and we were in her world. Mary Agana was also seen all over the park at the event. Hanging under the Universal Archway as guests approached was a video monitor shaped like a mirror. Mary herself would talk to guests as they approached, giving a general overview of what to expect inside.
I dare you to call out to me! Give me the power to show you my world!
Mary appeared as a ghostly apparition in The Hallow and Scary Tales Once Upon a Nightmare. An image appeared of Mary on a TV in Creatures and on a monitor on the ship NSO Columbus 1492 in Interstellar Terror. And in Dead Exposure, Charlie McPherson had a picture of Mary Agana on his desk. Of course, Mary Agana and Bloody Mary were also seen in her own house, Reflections of Fear. Even though we haven't really seen Bloody Mary in the physical sense since HHN 18, the character has had a presence since 2008. In Leave It to Cleaver in 2009, Mary Agana's severed head was seen. In the house Psychoscarapy Echoes of Shady Brook in 2010, a scare actor was dressed like Dr. Mary Agana, another possible connection between the character and Shady Brook. In Havoc Derailed in 2013, Bloody Mary flashed on one of the monitors. And in Ash vs. Evil Dead in 2017, Mary Agana's name was seen advertising to babysit. In 2015, during the exclusive Legendary Truth investigation, it was implied heavily that Bloody Mary helped the icons trapped in Fear's lantern. It is believed that she helped free them, which is how they were seen at the event in 2015. The most obvious sighting of Bloody Mary since 2008 came in HHN Icons Captured at HHN 30, where while she wasn't seen, a room in the house featured a bunch of mirrors shattering and a familiar shriek piercing the eardrum of guests. Since 2008, we haven't really seen anything as elaborately connected as Bloody Mary in 2008. 2009, 2010, and 2011 had interwoven stories with the icons, but nothing to the extent as HHN 18. Given the legal entanglements with Bloody Mary, we may never see that character again. However, one has to wonder if Mary Agana is perhaps close to re-emerging sometime in the future. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the fog. I'm HHN Legacy, and thanks for watching.